Currently with clouds, 81 degrees, and a light breeze out there tonight. Help cool things off just a little. This is England Dan and John Ford Coley at 13. Okay, with Josh Phillips and Love is the answer.
That's better, all right. That's it.
Brought to you in part by the Metro Denver Yamaha dealers.
Hi, how you doing? Hey, hi, Mom. How you doing, Mom?
Want to say hi, Mom?
Mom, I'm on TV.
Hi, your first chance to be on TV. Hi, Mom.
Don't you see it?
Oh, there it is. Where? Oh, I see. I'm right up
On
there.
my hat, yeah. We'll be back after these messages.
Let's take a look at the coaching staff.
Their first game in September at Pittsburgh, they'll have a lot of new faces in the lineup, and they'll have some new faces on the coaching staff.
3, 4, set.
There are 4 new assistants on Dan Reeves' staff in 1983. Coaching the wide receivers and quarterbacks is John Hadel. After a standout career at the University of Kansas, where he was an All-American quarterback, Hadel spent 16 seasons in the pros. First with the AFL San Diego Chargers, whom he led to a championship, then on to Los Angeles and Green Bay, winding up his playing career with the Houston Oilers. His coaching career included stops with the Rams, where he was offensive coordinator last season. Before that, 3 years at Kansas, holding the same position on the Jayhawks staff. The offensive line will be the charge of Dan Radakovich, who coached on 3 Super Bowl teams in the NFL. Radakovich played at Penn State and was a member of the Nittany Lions coaching staff for 13 years. He broke into the NFL in 1971 with Pittsburgh, then returned to the college ranks as defensive coordinator for the University of Colorado. He returned to the Steelers after that and coached the offensive line to a pair of Super Bowl championships. He coached the LA Rams for 3 seasons, and in 1980, as offensive line coach, the club led the NFL in rushing. Last season, he was an assistant at North Carolina State. 1983 will be Radakovich's 27th as a coach. Coaching the defensive backfield is a familiar face. Charlie West concluded a 12-year career in the NFL, playing the last 2 seasons in 1978 and 79 with the Broncos. Before that, he was with Minnesota and Detroit after being a second-round draft choice from Texas El Paso. He was one of the top athletes in UTEP history, earning 10 letters. Before joining the Broncos staff, West coached at Macalester College in Minnesota, and last season was on Joe Kaff's staff at the University of California. West has the distinction of having played professional baseball, spending 1 season in the Cincinnati Reds organization as an outfielder. I.J. Gorman is the final new assistant in charge of strength and conditioning. This is a new position on the Broncos staff. The last 2 seasons, the personable Gorman has been an assistant at Principia College in Illinois. Before that, he was on the staff of the Dallas Cowboys. The senior member of the staff is Joel Collier, who begins his 15th season with the Broncos. Besides being the defensive coordinator, Collier also was assistant head coach. Collier is considered one of the defensive geniuses in the NFL, who was on Lou Saban's staff at Western Illinois in 1957. He moved with Saban into the pros when the AFL was formed 3 years later. He coached with the Patriots and Buffalo and was head coach of the Bills for 3 seasons. Collier played collegiately at Northwestern, where he was an all-Big Ten selection as an end.
15 hits. All right. He's got to go.
For defensive line coach Stan Jones, this will be his 30th consecutive year in pro football, his 13th as a member of the Broncos staff. Jones was an All-American at Maryland, was named the nation's Lineman of the Year. After college, he played 12 years with the Chicago Bears and 1 with the Washington Redskins. He was All-Pro 4 times and played in 7 Pro Bowls. Stan is on his 2nd tour with the Broncos, having coached under Lou Saban from 1967 to 71, then moving to Buffalo before coming back to Denver. Merle Moore returns to his former role as linebacker coach with the Broncos after helping coach the offensive line last season. Previously, he coached the offensive line in 1972, then took over the linebackers the following season. He coached for 5 years before joining the staff of the Oakland Raiders. Moore played at the University of California, Davis as a linebacker and tight end, and he coached collegiately at the University of California.
I want to see that ball.
The running backs, again, the charge of Nick Nicolau, a veteran of 25 years as a coach on every level: high school, small college, major college, NFL, and Canadian League. He came to the Broncos in 1981 as a special assistant. Previously, he'd been on the staff of the New Orleans Saints. Before that, he was director of player personnel and running backs coach at Montreal in the CFL. During his tenure, the Alouettes were in the Grey Cup games twice. Fran Polsfoot will again be coaching tight ends and special teams. This is his 22nd season in the NFL and 7th with the Broncos. Other NFL teams he's been with include Cleveland, St. Louis, and Houston. Polsfoot was an end in college, then played pro ball with the Chicago Cardinals and Washington Redskins. And he played in the 2nd annual Pro Bowl back in 1951. Marv Bass is the special assistant on the staff. It's his job in camp, among other things, to keep track of statistics from all of the practices. Bass will at South Carolina coach Dan Reeves when he was a starting quarterback. He's had nearly 40 years of experience as a coach and administrator in college and pro football. He came to Denver 2 years ago from the CFL Calgary Stampeders, where he was defensive coordinator. Bass was an All-American player at William & Mary, coached in the college ranks at his alma mater, and then also moved on to North Carolina, Georgia Tech, South Carolina, and the University of Richmond. Dan Reeves starts his 3rd season as head coach and is looking to rebound from a 2-7 record in last year's strike-shortened season.
I feel good at the running back position that we'll open the season with that being a position that's fairly strong. At the tight end position, we've got 3 guys there that get some age on them, and maybe we don't have as much speed as we would like at that position with Riley and Ron and James at the tight end position. But certainly by using the two tight ends as much as we do, particularly in blocking and passing situations, I think, we'll get the job done at the tight end position. I think we made strides in the offensive line. Studdard is much more comfortable now at the tackle position, which we had to make that move, we felt like, from a depth standpoint because of the retirement of Claudia Minor. But we do feel good at the offensive line. We feel like we've made some progress in the last week. Pass protection is one of the areas that we feel like is a key to our offense that we could improve over last year. And we feel like we're getting a little bit better in the pass protection area. Certainly not where we want to be, but through the preseason, hopefully we'll be there when the season starts. At the wide receiver position, I think we're going to be stronger with the addition of Clint Sampson, and hopefully Orlando McDaniel will continue to improve. He started practicing this week and has shown that he's better than he was last year. I feel very good about our defense, particularly in the area that we were weak last year, and that was pass defense. If we can increase the amount of turnovers that we had last year from the defensive side, which we've really done in training camp, which that's a reflection on your offense, but they've been getting an awful lot of turnovers, and I think we're going for the football aggressively, and I think we'll get a lot. So I feel good about it at this particular point, but we must continue to improve each week for us to stay pleased with the progress that we're making. I think John will continue to improve, and a lot's going to depend on how much he does between, this first preseason game and the last as to what his chances are of starting, this year, because he has a tremendous amount of tools, but he's got an awful lot, to learn. I've never seen anybody with more talent than John has, and certainly it would take something freakish for him not to live up to the expectations that people have of him. And certainly, we hope that he can stay free of injuries, and if that happens, he's got a bright future ahead of him.
John Elway is special. Make no mistake about it. Elway is being touted as the best quarterback prospect to come into the league since Terry Bradshaw, and in this camp he's done nothing to dispel that.
John is catching on, and he's doing a great job. He's surprising me. As a rookie to come in, he just has a great football background. His dad being a head coach and him being a quarterback since he was real little. And, he's catching on better than any rookie I've ever seen.
Off the field, the youngster has had to deal with his biggest battle. That is, of course, to fulfill the hundreds of media requests. It started on day one, on July 12th, when as many as 50 reporters and photographers from throughout the land documented his every move and word. His father said he has come to grips with that situation after a rough introduction.
He can pretty much define what he has to do in football versus what he has to, the obligation he's got off the football field.
Red 28!
John Elway's becoming a Denver Bronco has given even Claudia Minor, the longtime star tackle who retired, a bit of envy of not being able to block for him.
Every offensive lineman would like to have the opportunity to work in unison with a talent like John Elway. John will make the offensive line's work easy. He'll find a way to pick that defense apart. And doggone, you're going to make a lot of offensive linemen very happy. Not only that, your running backs are going to be, you'll see them starting to exploit their talents also, more so than what you have in the past.
John does not deny the fact he wants to start in Pittsburgh on opening day, September 4th. But he knows that decision isn't his.
I'd like to start. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to leave that up to Coach Reeves. If I don't start, I'm not going to be disappointed, but I'm just going to keep working hard, trying to do my best and learn the offense, and let Coach Reeves make that decision.
Just watching this young man for a short period of time makes you so well aware that he is indeed special.
This is one place you don't have to buy a ticket to watch John Elway. This isn't much of a fence, but it is the dividing line between the public and the players. And the people who come here to watch this team are some great Bronco fans. Ain't that right? Yeah! Right.
What are you guys up to?
What do you see up there? They come a long ways, rainy days or sunny days, to watch some Bronco plays, sometimes from a long ways away.
They come closer, do they?
It's all right. You're looking good. Some people say it just doesn't pay. They just as soon stay away as to drive all this way to spend the day in such a way too far away. But these folks say, no way.
Yeah, it was fun to come down.
Yeah? Will you come back?
Sure. I get taken here.
It's an excellent way, you hear them say, to use the day to catch some rays.
Pretty good. Yeah.
How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
It's a good practice.
Yeah, I think we work a little harder.
Think so?
Oh, yeah.
Are you working hard?
Yeah.
Yeah, look like it. Some come to play with football today. They'd like to do it for pay if there was any way. How about you, sir? Would you like to see me?
No, I want to watch football players. Come on, get all the way.
Say, ball. So does it pay to spend the day in such a way, to come this way to watch them play a long ways away?
I really wasn't watching that. I think you talking to the wrong guy.
Kind of exciting.
Looks like you kind of tied one on here, huh?
They seemed a little lethargic, but we'll hope for more this afternoon. I keep working on the enthusiasm level.
You say they should be cut. I mean, they make all four.
You're going to be better than people say they are.
I like them. They're going to do good.
How about it, sir? Am I in focus?
No, but you're going to be in traction pretty soon.
Quarterback. DeBerg's my favorite, and we'll take a look at him and the rest of the quarterbacks when we come back in a couple minutes.
There has been a lot of unrest at the quarterback's position, not only in recent years, but really since the inception of this team back in 1960. And again, the battle wages on in this camp. It will be the veteran, number 17, Steve DeBerg, versus the rookie, number 7, John Elway. What would be a Bronco football season without a quarterback controversy? In years past, it usually centered around Craig Morton. This year, the honor goes to number 17, Steve DeBerg. Just as DeBerg figured this would be his year, along came this kid called Elway. DeBerg, however, is not one to be easily deterred. Coach Dan Reeves has called him his starter for the 1983 campaign, and the only way DeBerg will lose that spot is if he plays himself out of it. Last year, he finished 8th among AFC passers while completing over 58% of his throws. At one point last season, DeBerg completed 17 straight passes to tie an NFL record. That record has since been broken. DeBerg says he usually plays best under pressure, and that pressure will be looking at him right from the bench. It will come in the form of number 7, rookie sensation John Elway, the most celebrated player to come into the league since the likes of Joe Namath. Elway hasn't even thrown a pass in the NFL, but he's already being considered the Broncos' savior of the future, if not this year. This canonization by fans is unfair to the new kid on the block, but he brings with him the credentials of a potential superstar. The former Stanford great was signed to $1 million a year contract by the Broncos, and you can bet he'll be in there at the first signs of trouble. You don't pay someone that much money to sit on the bench. The third quarterback slot may not even be available this year. The decision will be left up to Coach Reeves. But if there's a likely candidate for this position, it's former Texas A&M great Gary Kubiak. Quarterback coach John Hadel says the player with the most intelligence, not talent, will get this plum. As of right now, Kubiak could just be that player. Needless to say, the quarterback's position is going to be the key spot for Denver this year. It will be those players that make the Broncos soar to new heights.
When Coach Dan Reeves and his staff arrived here in Greeley at training camp, they felt one of the areas of concern on offense might be at wide receiver, but that hasn't turned out to be the case. Veteran Rick Upchurch, the NFL's leading punt returner, will start as one wideout, and despite some personal problems, he's having a sensational camp. Upchurch, starting his 9th season, has caught just about everything that has been thrown his way.
He's a great athlete, you know. I've always known that because I've seen him a lot playing against him in films and things, and he's a guy that could catch a short pass and go 80 yards and win the ball game, things like that, which makes a lot of difference.
The other starting wide receiver will be Steve Watson, who caught 36 passes for 555 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. But it was an off season for Watson, who drew double and triple coverage. Watson looks like he can have the year he did 2 seasons ago when he was all-pro.
Well, Steve's a very consistent type guy. He never makes mistakes. He catches the ball well in the crowd, and he'll make a big catch for you at the key time. And I'm very happy with what I'm working with, believe me.
The Broncos made Clinton Sampson of San Diego State their 3rd-round draft choice, and they have not been disappointed one bit. Sampson has indeed been impressive and looks like a cinch to make the club. The one rap against the rookie is he has small hands for a receiver. But John Hadel discounts this.
I don't think that's a problem. Clinton's the biggest problem right now. He's a rookie, and there's a lot thrown at him, and he's got a lot to learn, and he's learning it every day. He gets better every day. So that's not going to be a problem. He's had success in college, and he's a good player.
The 4th receiver probably will be Wade Manning, who can also return kicks. Manning, with his great speed, also has looked good in the first 3 weeks in Greeley. Last year's 2nd-round pick, Orlando McDaniel, missed valuable time with a hamstring injury. He's returned to practice, but he's a long shot at best. Jeff Rakes from Colorado State has been a pleasant surprise to the coaches, but a serious shoulder injury will keep him on the sidelines, and he most likely will go on injured reserve.
There are a number of positions on this team loaded with veteran talent, and one of those positions is at tight end. And that position could be the toughest spot for a rookie to make the roster.
And then your foot's coming. Your foot should come with a hit.
I think the key is for me to settle down, and I have my confidence and everything catching the ball. I just need to settle down a little bit.
I just wanted to come back and really prove to myself within that I can still play this game and instead of going out with the bad rep that I had last year. Myself, in the role that I have, I get a lot of playing time. As you said, last year I played an awful lot, so if I can continue to do that, I'm happy.
Those are the incumbents and the most likely trio to make the club. As Riley Odom said, this is a year of proving to himself and to his critics that he still has something left. Unlike at the end of last season when he left town weighing 265 pounds, the man they call the Judge reported into camp at 237, or just 2 pounds over his playing weight. He wants to start, but will also be a role player. Jim Wright seems to have found a home here in Denver after 4 years in the league. Last year, he agonized over the possibility of being cut in favor of Clay Brown. That did not happen. And Wright played so well that he was and still is a starter until he plays himself out of the job or is simply beaten out. Ron Egloff is a survivor. For 6 seasons after signing on as a free agent in 1977, he has toiled in the shadow of Riley Odoms. Last year, even though he didn't start, he saw as much time as Odoms and Wright both.
I think that I understand that I'm put in a role on this team, and that either Jim or Riley is going to be number 1, and I'm going to be the guy that comes in as the 2nd tight end, does all the shift and the motion and all that sort of thing. So as far as number 1, I think those 2 guys are battling for that, and I'm going to do what I've been doing the last couple of years.
You know them, you love them, you can't live without them, those Denver Broncos. But you wouldn't know them if they all went by their nicknames.
Don't even start. Yeah, my nickname is Leroy.
But I think Sarge, that's a pretty good nickname.
Billy Brown gives everyone a nickname.
Do not quote your sources if they're incorrect.
Give me one.
What's yours?
I'm telling.
I'm the Blade.
There's the Hulk and Rube, the Ice and Eggs, Leroy and Glass, Paul Bunyan and Barefoot, the Joker and Bryce, the Incredible Sulk, the Judge and Sarge, Sweetback and Studs, Swens and Church, the same as Tadpole, Cornbread and the Blade.
Tadpole.
How'd you get that one?
I don't really even know. I guess because I squirm around so much.
Most of them have a name you might not know, but some of them won't admit it.
A lot of nicknames that the guys won't fess up to.
Do you have a nickname? No.
I don't have any. They call me a lot of things that you couldn't put on the air, probably.
Does she have a nickname? Red Miller came up with the Blade.
I'd done something well, I guess, and he said, way to go, Blade. And everybody looked around. They couldn't figure out who he was talking to. And I got back to the huddle, and he patted me on the back and said, "Attaboy, Blade."
What do you think it means?
Well, I don't know whether it's because I'm sharp or not. I doubt it.
Now, the last guy in number 7 was the old man. So far, the new one has no handle. John, you probably haven't been asked this yet. I know you've been asked everything else. But do you have a nickname?
No.
No? Why do they call you Ice?
Why? Because that's my name.
Why? Where'd it come from?
The Berg means the ice.
The ice.
Yeah.
The Berg. The iceberg?
The iceberg.
Offensive line. Offensive line. Offensive line. Offensive line.
Right after these messages.
You got about the quarterback duel between Steve DeBerg and John Elway. What about the offensive line the two quarterbacks will operate behind this season? One of the big jobs facing offensive line coach Dan Radakovich is replacing left tackle Claudie Miner. A recent visitor to training camp, the 6'4", 278-pound Miner, who started all but 2 games during his 9 years with the Broncos, recently announced his retirement. It appears that Dave Studdard, who was shifted to right guard last season, will be back at tackle and line up in the hole vacated by Miner. Anchoring the offensive line will be 6-year veteran Bill Bryan from Duke, who ranks among the best centers in the NFL. Last season, his teammates voted Bryan the MVP on offense. Besides Bryan, at right guard probably will be Paul Howard, who played there in every game last season. Except for the 1976 season when he was injured, Howard has been a fixture at right guard since midway through 1974. Tom Glassick will again start at left guard and has the distinction of starting every game in which he has played over the last 7 years. Glassick was the Broncos' first draft choice after an outstanding collegiate career at Virginia. Ken Lanier, a 5th-round choice from Florida State in 1981, broke into a starting job at right tackle last year and impressed the coaches. He will again start this season. Other possible breakthroughs on the offensive line, veteran Keith Bishop in his 3rd year, along with Brian Clark, Keith Euchre, and rookie Jerry Baker. The Broncos made tackle Mark Cooper of Miami of Florida their 2nd draft choice this past year. He'll move to guard and could challenge later in the season.
We've got a bunch of rookies in here, and I hope that a couple of them will make it. You know, we have 4 or 5 may make it, or maybe only 1. You know, it's too early to tell, both with the rookies and with the vets. You know, you play the best you got, and your goal is to be the best offensive line in football. You know, whether you can do it in a day or a month or 5 years, you just work for it.
The Denver Bronco running backs help bear the offensive scoring burden for this team. This is the tire drill up at camp here in Greeley, helping those to hang on to the ball, something that has plagued this backfield for the past couple of weeks. Head coach Dan Reeves doesn't look for anything flashy or spectacular from his backfield, just consistency, the same kind of consistency that led this team to the Super Bowl back in 1977. Over the past few years, the sore spot with the Denver Broncos was at running back. With the retirement of Otis Armstrong, the team lacked a real threat coming out of the backfield. They got that threat last year in top draft pick Gerald Wilhite. Number 47 led the team last year in rushing with 347 yards, but bear in mind that was in 9 games, and it averaged out to an even 5 yards a carry. That was 2nd best in the NFL. Another future great is Sammy Winder. Number 23 rushed for 259 yards last year, and the 5th-round draft pick of 1982 caught everyone's attention as the year came to an end with continuous improvement in all phases of the game. Count on Sammy Winder battling for a starting berth this season. If Rob Lytle were a baseball player, injuries alone would have him rival the great Mickey Mantle. There's no telling what this former Michigan great could have done if it wasn't for a pair of bad knees. With all the operations he's had, they now look like a Rand McNally road atlas. But Lytle was one of the Broncos' leading performers on special teams, showing everyone that even if he couldn't start, he was going to contribute to the cause somehow. If there was an all-nice guy team in the NFL, undoubtedly Dave Preston would be on it. Number 46 contributes to the Broncos in so many ways, it really doesn't show up in the stats. He doesn't have the 1,000-yard rushing seasons, but when it's needed, he's there, either on the handoff or off the short pass. An all-purpose performer, Preston's work in the community of Denver really shines, so much so that he was named as the Broncos NFL Man of the Year by the Miller Brewing Company. In 1981, Rick Parrell showed flashes of becoming one of the NFL's premier rushers. In that season, he compiled almost 750 yards on the ground, this after coming off a knee injury that kept him out the year before. Parrells, however, rushed for only 277 yards last year, and you can bet he's out to prove to himself that he can attain those lofty standards again. Despite an off year on the ground, number 24 led the Broncos with 37 pass receptions, and that ranked him 10th in the AFC. Underrated may be the best word for Nathan Poole. The best story on him was back in high school. After a great senior year, he was turned down for a football scholarship by the legendary Bear Bryant of Alabama. The Bear said Poole was just too small. Poole went on to Louisville, where he became one of the school's top rushers ever, and he even helped beat Alabama. But with the Broncos, Poole hasn't had much of a chance to shine. Despite playing in all 9 games last year, he gained only 36 yards on the ground. But his average per carry was an impressive 5.1 yards. Without a doubt, this breed of player was born to run.
Just can't lose the time or stay behind. Well, I was born to run, to get ahead of the race, and all that I wanted was to be the best, just to feel free and be someone. I was born to be fast, I was born to run. Well, I take the chance. Sometimes I make mistakes, but you don't get nothing unless you take the break. Living's as dangerous as dynamite. Sure makes you feel nervous, but it makes you feel alright. Makes you feel alright. Well, I was born to run, to get ahead of the race, and all that I wanted was to be the best, just to feel free and be someone. I was born to be fast, I was born to run, I was born to run, to get ahead of the race, and all that I wanted was to be the best, just to feel free and be someone. I was born to be fast, I was born to run.
They wear all those little numbers, the single-digit kind. Somebody said it's because their chest isn't big enough for 2. But don't insult them unless you're out of range of their foot.
Look at it. I mean, I got all this space here. Something big.
You can be number 1 in Colorado.
What are you guys doing?
Doing a story on the Cougars.
Oh, yeah?
They have been called a special breed. They spend a lot of time contemplating their feet. Free spirits with no souls, earning their bread with the front of their tread. Are you working hard, number 2?
Working hard?
Yeah.
This is really embarrassing.
That's not a lazy boy, but it is comfortable, though.
Definitely.
They say this is good practice, standing around, watching everybody else running around. It develops patience to wait for that golden opportunity to win a game. Once in a while, they get a real job, like hiking the ball for 7-on-7s. But then nobody wants to block, so you duck to miss the pass. And once in a great while, they get some real excitement to practice some razzle-dazzle, a fake. and hope the charging defense remembers whose foot the shoe is not on. That camera's rolling. You want to lift some weights right now? Or?
No, I'd just as soon sit here and let y'all guys leave.
Yes, they are a special breed, practicing their patience with the magical touch only a kicker can pursue. Even the ball has to toe the line. Our kicker's kind of a special breed.
Very special. No one else could stand this much abuse and be this bored and still go out and do a good job.
Oh, there we go.
Have a fumble or something to move.
He's looking for the defensive line. If you wait just a few minutes, we'll have it up close for you. Is that all right?
That's all right.
Dan Reeves and his staff can't see every single play by every single player. So what do? They use cameras to get the best possible look at the best prospects. And these cameras will have their lens focused on the defensive line, because there are some openings.
All right. Okay. All right.
The defensive line still has some genuine talent that needs to be remotivated. The men in the trenches went along with the rest of the team and had a tough time coming back from the strike as the quarterback sack total dropped dramatically. The club will again primarily run a 3-down lineman set with starters Rulon Jones, Reuben Carter, and Barney Chavis back. Massive Greg Boyd, the team's designated pass rusher, has looked impressive of late. The other key backups are veteran Bryson Manor and Don Latimer. As most of you know, Latimer leaves the team after this year for the USFL. Defensive line coach Stan Jones had this opinion of what the loss of a Don Latimer will do for this team and what they plan to do about it.
I don't think that you can plan that far ahead right at this moment. One thing I'm sure about Don is he always comes to play, and he's always played very well and done very well for us. And I don't look for any change in Don's performance this year that would indicate that we would sit him aside and work in somebody else, for instance. Because, this year counts. This is it. I mean, we would like to say we're building for the future, but, today is the future. We want to win this year.
There is some young talent here that has not only come to the forefront, but has pleasantly surprised Stan Jones. Walt Boyer, Rich Stikowski, and Carl Mecklenburg have caught everyone's eye. Jones has been particularly amazed at the 12th round pick out of Minnesota, Mecklenburg.
Carl Mecklenburg is the fastest 10-yard dash that we've ever timed here. And, he has a great deal of intensity. And I would say this fellow's going to be in football for quite some time.
The defensive line has a major goal: get to the quarterback. That will undoubtedly spell success.
The defensive backfield is a veteran one. The biggest problem facing new coach Charlie West is filling the position vacated with the retirement of Aaron Kyle. Steve Foley completely recovered from a broken arm suffered in the very first game of the season last year, and Mike Harden have both worked at right cornerback. Charlie West says that doesn't mean one of the two, though, will wind up at that position.
We got to see how it goes through the exhibition season. Everybody that's lining up over there is competing well for the job. Foley and Harden are switching off now, but there's other competition for that spot. We can't just, it's not a foregone conclusion that one of those guys will end up there. Steve Wilson is having a good camp. Roger Jackson, who is playing the other corner, can switch over there, and one of the young players that's up to now has been having a really good camp is Wilbur Myers. I would say a rookie player is a long shot just because he's a rookie, but the people who are competing there are doing a fine job.
Playing the left corner is Lewis Wright, considered by many as the best player at his position in the NFL. Last season, he was voted the most valuable defensive player by his teammates. Dennis Smith, perhaps the best athlete on the team, and a former top draft pick in 1981, is the incumbent at strong safety. Smith will hold down that position for years to come, barring injuries. Coach Charlie West likes what he has seen of his defensive secondary.
I couldn't imagine having a better group to work with. They're all conscientious and work hard. They're fine people as well as football players, and they're helping me a great deal. and I expect us to feel a good bunch.
Any kids back there remind you of yourself when you were playing?
Well, I'd say they're all better than I was. You know, the evolution of football is getting better and more demanding all the time, and it's more precise from the coaching standpoint. No, they're all better than I could ever have been.
The linebacking core of the Denver Broncos could have the finest selection of players since the mid-1970s. It's not that this position is up for grabs by any means. It's that the talent is so good, it could be the finest in the National Football League. Leading the way into the 1983 season is number 53, Randy Gradishar. The six-time Pro Bowl player is entering the final year of what will be a 10-year NFL career. His stint has been brilliant, to say the least. Last year, as he has for the previous 7 seasons, Gradishar led the team in tackles with 151, his career total surpassing the 1,800 mark. Because of this incredible consistency, Gradishar has been named to the All-NFL or All-AFC squads for the past 6 years. Needless to say, when number 53 hangs it up at the end of this season, his equal is going to be next to impossible to find. Tom Jackson is considered a character among characters on the Denver Broncos, but on the field, Jackson is nothing but business. His intensity sometimes boils over into on-the-field confrontations, but his game attitude has never been questioned. Number 57, one of the links to the Super Bowl year of 1977, was second on the team in tackles last year and was named most inspirational player on the club. A lengthy contract battle combined with last year's NFL strike had Bob Swenson reporting to camp last year in the worst shape of his career and well after the season had been decided. But this year, a new number 51 has arrived at Greeley. Several players have commented that they have never seen Swenson in better condition or in a better frame of mind. He'll need both to keep that left outside linebacker's position because there's a lot of talent that wants his job. One of those young Lions is number 50, Jim Ryan. Ryan started all 9 of last year's games and proved to coaches and fans alike that he can play as a starter, not just as a mop-up sub or on special teams. His versatility, however, is what makes him so valuable. Ryan has played all 4 linebacking positions and was special teams captain for the 2nd straight year. Number 50 has let it be known he wants to start, and he will let nothing stand in his way until he does. The other starter in the Broncos linebacking crew is Larry Evans. Starting every game for the 2nd straight season, number 56 chalked up 80 tackles, the 4th best mark on the team. Durability is Larry Evans defined. He has not missed a game in 7 years with the squad, and his consecutive games played streak is now at 101. Jersey number 59 is that of Darren Como. The former Arizona State grad signed with the Broncos as a free agent in 1982, with most of his playing time coming on special teams. Rick Dennison is a hometown boy with the Broncos, having graduated from CSU back in 1979. No stranger to the NFL, Rick finally landed with the Broncos last year after being cut by the Buffalo Bills. Dennison may not be in that glamour position of starter, but his special teams play is invaluable. Ken Woodard, number 52, played in every game for Denver last season, but most of that came with the special teams, the Suicide Squad. Woodard's story is told in the fact that he broke in with the Bronco linebackers as a 10th round draft pick out of Tuskegee Institute. That in itself says it all. Another up-and-coming player is number 58, Steve Busick. Look for Busick to step in when Randy Gradishar retires.
Out of all these bunches of Broncos, who would you say is the biggest prankster? You got it, Randy Gradishar. That's right, you've heard all about this legendary linebacker and his unmatched supremacy on the field. But man, you ought to see him with a bucket of water in his hand. Just ask his buddies what comes to mind when you mention the name Gradishar.
Waterhead. Water. Some poor kid was carrying 2 pizzas in.
Well, he denies it.
Did he deny that one?
But I wouldn't believe it.
He had him carrying them like this, and here comes that bucket of water out 6 stories up. That kid jumped about 30 feet in the air.
2 wet pizzas, and then nobody claimed them.
Yeah.
That's the rumor.
And he's a prankster, too.
I hear you.
Probably the best on the team.
I often wonder how he stays alive, really.
The problem is they've got a lot of false accusations going on. And there's nobody really actually seen me throw water that they've accused me of.
Now, we don't get the chance very often to show you just how down-to-earth he really is. So watch this. Whoops, look at that. You can't get any more down-to-earth than that. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the name Randy Gradishar?
Money.
Money?
Tightest guy I've ever met in my life.
Dimes, nickels, quarters, money.
Saw him in the end zone in Cleveland once, right in the middle of the
league game, picking a dime up on a football field.
We were lining up.
Everybody got down for the play.
And he looked down and saw a dime.
And Randy stopped and picked up a dime.
While they were snapping the ball.
Right in the middle of the field.
So we got it on film.
Oh, that is? We got that on film. That's a fact.
It's documented.
Could have cost us.
He's the only guy who could get away with stuff like that.
Could have cost us. The guy didn't care.
Randy, is that true about the dime in the end zone in Cleveland?
It's probably a quarter. No, it was a dime. And had just a few seconds there before they snapped the ball to get that. So that's always kind of stuck with me, I guess, from the other guys here. So I had to admit that after we saw the films on Monday morning. So try to make myself rich.
Ball back here. Come on. Get with us. I like punters. I like kickers. I like fighters. I like punters. We'll look at both right after these messages.
Special teams, place kicking and punting to be exact, to become integral parts of any NFL team. It's no different for the Denver Broncos, and this is one area where they feel very confident. That barefoot became quite familiar to Denver Bronco fans last year. It was here in Greeley that Rich Karlis stunned Broncos fans and media alike by beating out Fred Steinfurt, who was an All-Pro the year before. If there is such a thing as a lock on a position, then Rich Karlis fits that description, even though he won't entirely admit it.
Well, I tell you, the mental edge is more important than anything. I feel that, they did bring in some kickers, but I feel that this year, different from last year, is that it's my job to lose this year instead of my job that I have to win. And mentally, it's really given me the edge. It's allowed me to relax. I feel very comfortable in my surroundings. It allows me just to relax and kick the ball. And, with my first showing, I feel very comfortable.
The same situation appears evident in the punter's job. This big Texas leg belongs to Pro Bowler Luke Prestridge, a fifth-year man out of Baylor. Luke led the entire NFL at his craft a year ago. Since he too all but has his position locked up, what motivates this man?
The one thing I have is experience, and each year helps, and I just want to go out there and feel comfortable and strive to work hard and be an asset to the football team. Past performance is wonderful when it's finally over, but as long as I'm playing, I want to strive for what's coming up next.
So complacency is not in your vocabulary?
I hope not. It'd be like getting complacent on the golf course. If I was shooting 68s all the time, that'd be something. Or in football, if I was punting the ball 60 yards every time, I guess I would be pretty happy. But I've still got a lot of room to improve, and I have to have a lot of help in what I do, and I just can't be satisfied. You just got to strive forward.
Broncos last season, of course, the strike-shortened year, 2-7. This year, 16 games. Elway should be some improvement. Some other areas need help, though. I think they'll go 10-6.
I think a little bit too optimistic, Mike. I think there are a lot of questions to be answered at quarterback. John Elway, as you know, the rookie, and Steve DeBerg. We still don't know what he can do in a complete season. I look for a 500 season, 8-8 for the Broncos. Gary?
And we don't agree very often, but this time I think we will. I do, like you, believe the Broncos will go 8-8, mainly because of the quarterback situation. I don't think John Elway, as great as he may become, can be a great quarterback in his very first year. Also, the defense is getting the rap of being a little bit older. They have a lot to prove in my eyes to be able to get over that 500 hump. I want to thank you very much for joining all of us for the last hour for the 1983 Denver Broncos special, Destination Dynasty. Good night, everyone.